Welcome to the Inspired Evolution, and today is an absolute treat because I've got here with me Tristan Bray. Tristan, how are you, brother?
I'm really good. How are you?
Oh man, I'm blessed to have you here today. Just for those listening in that didn't listen to the first podcast with Tristan, Tristan has been a regression therapist for about 10 years. He brings his in-depth background in psychotherapy, meditation, quantum healing, cell biology, epigenetics, kinesiology, psychopharmacology, sexual health, diet, detox, philosophy, metaphysics, Taoism, shamanism, entheogens, qigong, kung fu, and modern medical sciences. This is where the good stuff is to his clients in his talks and his workshops. He currently shares his skills as a therapist, a life coach, and a counselor. Throughout his 20s, Tristan studied internationally in the healing arts. He's passionate about reminding people that the human capacity for healing is truly limitless. Tristan helps to open his clients' minds to how many natural super abilities we all possess to enhance our life that have actually been squashed out of the mainstream belief system due to reductionist scientific dogma and disempowering of religions. Tristan's healing treatments, seminars, and workshops are primarily focused around clearing trauma and sharing why this is so important to all of us. Trauma is the biggest cause of ill health in our world because it will often permanently change the body's physiology, emotions, and spiritual outlook if it's not actually dealt with correctly. Much of modern medicine looks at putting a band-aid effect over the current effect of trauma as opposed to clearing it back at the creation point. And if I may, there's been, I think I shared this with you just before you jumped on, and the last podcast that we did together has definitely left a massive imprint on myself. It's when people ask about the Inspired Evolution podcast, depending on what they're sort of tuning into, generally I prescribe them the podcast that's relevant to them. But if they're just looking for a touch place to start, I always prescribe the podcast that we shared with together because it was so deep. So thank you so much for your time here today, bro.
Awesome, thanks, dude. Yeah, it's actually been still getting some really nice messages from people who've listened to that podcast the first time. There's one guy actually just contacted me the other day, and he's like, "It's like the best 2 hours of my life." Yeah, it's a compliment.
It's a compliment.
I'm listening to listen to it, and it's funny sometimes because I've listened to that podcast a few times, and it's funny when you hear yourself say something and you're like, well, that's a cool idea. Where'd you get that idea? I don't know. Because what I found sometimes is when you get into that flow, that connection with recording like this or just talking to someone, where you actually, things start happening, ideas start to come through that you can't just think up if you're just there by yourself.
Totally.
It just doesn't happen. So it's amazing what can develop and what can come through when you're interacting with someone. And again, Alan Watts, he says that you don't really know yourself without the other.
It's interesting that, isn't it?
Yeah, because I don't know what I know, and then if you ask me a question, it can be really quite far out. It completely, you ask me questions, stuff I'm very unprepared to answer, but then things happen. And it's like, oh well, that's a cool idea. Yeah, but a lot of it is definitely based on good data and stuff like this too. So I'm not just making things up.
Well,
things come through.
The thing that always amazed me about conversations, I was having this chat with one of my clients the other day, and he was saying, "What's the point in talking about it?" And I referenced exactly the same quote that you just put out. It's like finding yourself in the other person and that rebound effect of having that conversation. It's the mirror that exposes so much more than you inherently knew. And I find it amazing that for me personally, and I'm sure what you're referring to is much the same, is there's often these disparate ideas which are, all very potent in that, but in conversation, you're kind of drawn to drawing a lot of these things together. And that that clarity and that linearity which comes through just through conversation, being able to articulate that to someone else, is really profound. That effect, it's become everything to me. Hence the podcast.
Yeah. It's interesting, like what your friend was saying. Why I talk about it? One of the boggles I've had with people who do like a university degree, and you're hanging out with someone for a year, and then you find out they've got 2 degrees, and they never mention it. They never talk about it. And they never talk about what they know. They actually know all this pretty groovy stuff that they decided to study and pay money to study.
Yeah.
But some people don't talk about it. And I think it's really valuable to realize there's a level of responsibility that if you're actually studying and learning in whatever manner, you actually have a responsibility to pass it on. And because you studied it, you must be interested on some level.
Mm-hmm.
So to allow this to empower you and give you passion to kind of pass it on to other people. So I think it's everyone, as we learn it, it's a responsibility to pass this back into the collective. Because you might do a degree for 4 years and there'd be like a really juicy bit there somewhere that's really valuable to pass on to someone because they don't have time or don't want to do the same degree as you, but there's something really juicy that you can pass on. Like, I'll read a whole book and there might be like one paragraph which is gold and worth talking about, and the rest is like pretty redundant. And it's my responsibility after sifting through that book to go, oh, there's this really good paragraph. It's really good to pass that on. Yeah.
And I think that's there's something in there what you're referring to, which is I've come to discover as well, is that there's this suppression of sharing back, especially in today's day and age, which I think you've got a bit of wisdom around this, which is, in the information technology, it's like consume, but not really making the effort to share back, and not. In the way I look at it is create. So we consume, but we don't create. We consume, but we don't create. And I see that as like a quite a insidious repression.
Yeah, well, you can even replace the word with consume with possess, where people are looking at possess information as if it was like a currency. So you might go down your Facebook feed and open up 4 documents and cool articles. Do you actually read each article? Or do you kind of open it and go, oh, this is a cool idea, I'll read it later, because I've got more scrolling to do. And you open up stuff, you sort of like, then all the tabs on your feed, and I better bookmark these. I'm sure maybe if the internet goes off, I'll be able to save these. I don't know. So it's more this idea of possessing information in a kind of a hedonistic way, as opposed to metabolizing that information and absorbing it and seeing if there's some good stuff there. And also looking at, like a Hawaiian mystic once said to me, like some people turn on the TV to watch the news, and he's like, I don't do that because I know I don't need to know. So also looking at if you are really going to start metabolizing information, is it useless information? Because if it's from if it's from MSNBC, for example, or something like that, or CNN, it might actually be convoluted in a way to push a certain agenda, to make you feel a certain way. I think it's the Daily Telegraph the other day, that they should be in hot water. I'm not sure if they are. But the headline at the front said Captain Crybaby, and it had the ex-Australian cricket captain, I think it's this dude, he's crying, and it's the front page. And this is such toxic media because it's pushing the fact that it's immensely embarrassing and shameful that this whole bull tampering scandal has led someone to become so emotionally unwell, and then everyone's making fun of them, and to see that as far, once you start applying that to the rates of male youth suicide in our country around, suicide is a shame management tool. Right? Yeah. Where you feel so bad about yourself and there's no safe container to metabolize, process, and have someone or people hold space for you to move through your emotions, what you're going through. And then to see that in our culture, we see it as deeply, these mainstream newspapers and a lot of mainstream people are actually toroidally pushing this agenda continually around male shame and emotion. So there's a lot of toxic media out there. So what are you actually reading? It's a tricky one. So I think possessing information, everything like that. It's a funny one, and to really take, if you're looking at good articles and stuff like that, to don't read too much. You can only take on so many new concepts at a time, and to actually work with these and embody these concepts. So so look at what you're reading.
That was profound. Suicide is a shame management tool. I've never really looked at it like that, and it's quite a sinister, sinister finding. Yeah.
Well, you do think about it. It's a shame. We talked about Dr. David Hawkins and actually grading human emotions on an energetic level, and shame, self-loathing, and guilt are the lowest energies where it's the most unhealthy states of consciousness and most uncomfortable. quite a lot lower than anger and things like that.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, when they're feeling guilt and shame, it's like this guy who's tampering with the cricket ball or whatever, he's on suicide watch. You know?
Yeah.
And there's a pretty far-out article I put on my Opportunity Hill Facebook page the other day, looking at these different sporting heroes around Australia who actually have been caught, beating up women, harassing women, abusing women, and they're still playing the game.
Yeah.
And they haven't gone into the same level of public scrutiny and shaming and guilt and everything like that.
Yeah.
To actually see that tampering with a cricket ball, like sanding an edge of it, so it spins in a slightly different way, is like a national shame compared to like beating your girlfriend up and being convicted of it.
Well, see, this was the thing. Like, yeah. I watched. There was this meme that went up on Facebook, and I was. It summed it up perfectly. It was like refugees, meh. Like Australians' attitudes towards things, right? And I'm not condemning all Australians. Obviously, this is just a gross generalisation, but this is what the media projects, right? So the boats and refugees, meh. All these other things that were like violence against women, meh. All these things that were super like
coral bleaching,
completely gone. Stop Adani, meh. All these things which really mattered, like the Indigenous closing down local communities, meh. Ball tampering, what the fuck? Like, and it's just like,
and
it's just like what values are we projecting?
Totally. And you and I talked about this last time when we talked about the Australian sporting culture producing a lot of sociopathic competition and leading to sociopathic capitalism, sociopathic entrepreneurism, and again, sociopathic kind of ideals means that you are comfortably numb enough to thrive off the demise of other people. Yeah. So these sorts of media scandals where these sorts of witch hunts, where this person is condemned for life, that's that sort of sociopathic energy where you can actually print a headline that Captain Crybaby, everyone goes, oh, the guy's crying, I'm going to buy the newspaper. It's to see that we live in a culture that is that emotionally unwell, that this is still happening. And what's happened lately, like, you got this, that guy, he's mentally unwell and he's detoxing off painkillers, and his doctor sends the police around to his house to make sure he's okay. And he says, please don't come in, I'm detoxing, I'm unwell, like, just please leave, like, I'm going through a process. He's in his house.
Yeah.
The police drag him outside, hold him on the ground and pepper spray his face, and then he's kneeling there, then they get high pressure hose him. And then the cops are there, like, doing selfies, high pressure hosing this guy who's just like falling apart, emotionally crippled, shamed, abused on the lawn, and the high pressure hosing him. And the police didn't know that this guy had a surveillance camera on his front balcony and just filmed the whole thing. So what's happening now? We're seeing these police atrocities in Australia, which are very similar to the racial police atrocities happening in the United States, except this is not racial, man. This is just people being bad people. And the police are public servants
mm-hmm.
who are here to help and protect us.
Mm-hmm.
And to see that people are using, if you get someone who's really scared inside and really afraid of people, and can see that becoming a police officer is going to help them feel less afraid, that they can beat down on other people to enforce their sense of self. And it's to see that these emotionally crippled, weak men are going and becoming police officers so they can beat people to feel better about themselves, and then take selfies and stuff like that. And to see that this is these men, but to see that this is actually re-perpetuated, or there's a complicit energy in the feminine in our culture too. Like you have this Florida shooter in our culture. When I say our culture, I actually mean, like maybe the West or the humanity.
Yeah.
But you have the Florida shooter, that kid who went and shot 17 people at school recently.
Uh-huh.
It came out the other day that the courts have been intercepting all the mail that he's been receiving since he's been imprisoned.
Uh-huh.
Before his trial, and he's receiving like all these love letters from women, and like, you know, sexual photographs, sexual propositions. Young women his age at school going, you know, like, I saw you on the news and I think you're amazing, and, you know, like, you're really attractive, stuff like that. And he's just gone to school and shot 17 people. And now he's receiving like love letters from girls who are like, wow, you know, like, how about you and me, you know? So to see that there's, when men become violent and powerful in this way, that is so an element in the feminine, which is unfortunately attracted to this, which creates even more of a, a motivation. Unfortunately, like, so it's a sad state of affairs in the masculine and feminine, that this sorts of, like, you know, the cop who's taking the selfie as he's like high pressure hosing the dude in the face, who's just pepper sprayed in the eyeballs, is he going to send it to his girlfriend and go, hey, like, great day at the office, you know? Like, yeah. What's, like, you know, like seriously, these dudes, like, this sort of evidence is make you lose your job. Is it? And it's worth it. It's like worth it. It's fucking worth it. Like, I don't know.
So there's this thing that's coming up at the moment is just bravado, right? So it's like this whole masculine screening thing, like the cop that's doing this, you know, that is whoever's bullying whatever because of their own insecurities, and then there's that whole other insidious shift into it, which is obviously the feminine, like looking. Perhaps there is a feminine energy that is looking for masculinity and not finding it, but finds some sort of exhibition of male display in this dude that's gone and shot school. So it's like, I've referred to this as pseudo-masculinity for quite some time. It's like this synthetic overlay, which doesn't really, it's like this screen between what is actually real and what is being perceived. Is there, I think we sort of touched on this, but is the cure to that vulnerability?
The cure is, you remember we talked about last time how, like, you know, the cure to a lot of things is connecting with nature?
Yeah,
it's like that. So once you realize you're a part of everything else, you go into a pretty epic state of radical self-assessment into what you're creating in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you talk about pseudo-masculinity, it's like, you know, let's say you own a corporation and you're producing weapons, and you're also producing like giant military style bulldozers that can go into a forest and like shoot the natives while you chop down the biggest trees, kind of like on Avatar, you know, this sort of thing. You're producing these, right? Now, you need people to run this machine, so you need some people up there with some guns, you're going to shoot the natives, and you need some dudes to chop down the trees, you know. Very much like what you see on Avatar, which you also see on the Fern Gully, you know, movie as well, that Disney movie. Now, if you're running this corporation, you're building these machines, you need, you know, trees, and you need, like, people to run your machines, and you need, you know, if you have a conflict in the country, that means it's going to be a lot easier to break the government down to get in there and take the trees or whatever, you know. So you need a lot of disconnection. You need people to fight each other and stuff like that. So if you have a culture of men who are aggressive and disconnected from themselves, their hearts, the feminine, Mother Earth, these are going to be the perfect sorts of dudes to help run your military-style destructive corporation. Well, not run it, to be your pawns. And then the person yourself, let's say, hypothetically, is the person who owns the corporation. You need to be essentially a total sociopath, because if you are responsible for the decisions that are hurting people, hurting the earth, and hurting these trees, and hurting the environment, you need to be disconnected from that entirely to feel comfortable with it. So living in a culture, like a lot of the cultural values around the pseudo-masculinity in Australia, means that there are men available who are going to go and beat down on a certain part of the population as police. We look at the kind of hyper-militarized police situation in the United States with some of these race wars that are going on, where there's these protests against racial, some of the ways there's still weird racial kind of issues and values and stuff like that happening, where, like, you look at some of the race riots and, you know, around, you know, Martin Luther King's time, you need these kind of cops who are going to really go and like beat up African American people or even shoot them, knowing they're not going to get in trouble because they're helping this corporate system and keeping the people segregated and fighting. So men who are disconnected and beaten down and disconnected from their own emotions in this way become harder and harder and more stoic and more numb, which means that when, oh yeah, we're going to invade Vietnam, who wants to volunteer? There's people who are like, going to volunteer. In World War One and World War Two, like, you got kids who want to volunteer and there might be a problem with their eyesight or they're too young. There's young boys out there who kill themselves if they don't get accepted into the military and all their mates are going, So there's people who really want to go out there and prove their pseudo-masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And again, one of the really far out ways that we can see that the feminine is complicit in this imbalance is that there's unfortunately, we have a long-term epigenetic value or value system in our bodies where if you live in a hostile environment, let's say it's millennia ago, and you're living like in a jungle, and you're there raising a family in a cave, and the woman is there with the 3 children, let's say, and she's taking care of them, and like a predatory animal comes to the cave entrance, like a tiger. You need your man to chase away the tiger or kill it, not to become emotional, not to become afraid, but to be strong and literally deal with the situation immediately.
Mm-hmm.
That means that your chance of passing on your genes and your children surviving, yourself surviving, is higher.
Uh-huh.
So there's an orientation in the feminine body to be attracted to very hard men
mm-hmm.
who can protect you and your family. However, we don't. Many of us don't live in that kind of world anymore where we're actually safe. Okay, yeah. That means we're actually living in a world where the spiritual evolution of the masculine can take place because we're not having to be hard anymore. So if you look at Australia and New Zealand, for example, a lot of the white settlers who came here, or non-Aboriginal settlers who came here, this was a very foreign, harsh land, Australia and New Zealand, and to raise children, to raise families, to chop down the forest and build homes, and to create a space for this sort of colonization, men needed to be hard on quite an intense level.
Uh-huh.
So women who wanted to have a successful lifestyle were attracted to not so much intellectual men in these lands, or men who are dressed in silk doing qigong, but hard men with chainsaws and axes, and men who can fight and like be tough. But unfortunately, those attractive values in men and women are quite prehistoric.
Yeah, I was just feeling that in a different part of the brain. Yeah.
So there's an evolution in women, which means that women are being attracted to different types of men, realizing that the spiritual evolution of men is very important to actually start creating together as men and women good decisions in local government and politics on a personal level, on a family level, to make good decisions to help each other and help the planet with love. And to help men to open their hearts and open their sensitivity to everything, to their own personal mysticism, So men and women are in it together, and this idea of blaming men or women is redundant. It's everyone has masculinity and femininity inside them, so it's we're in it together, and that's why for men to really open and heal, they need to be loved through all their imbalances by anyone, but by particular if they're their feminine partner or a female partner, to be loved until we soften. And it's a super magical thing for a loving relationship to soften you and open you and make you realize that the ways that you've been shut down, numb and hard are completely not needed in our current culture. So the reinforcement of this culture through aggressive, violent sports, and the way the media talks about certain issues that we just mentioned, unfortunately is a part of the problem. But once you understand that having hard, numb men in particular, or women, this helps military involvement in other countries, and like what was it? In Barack Obama's last year of office, they dropped like 26,000 bombs on other countries. It's like people are like, yeah, whatever. What do bombs do, man? They hurt people. So if you're numb enough, you can, and if you're living in the United States, for example, and you're numb, you're not going to really mind that your government, your supposedly quite peaceful president, is bombing other countries. Like when Donald Trump launched that Tomahawk cruise missile attack on a Syrian airbase, one of the reporters, I think it was CNN, was watching a video of the Tomahawk missiles, which cost tens of $1 billion each. They watched these missiles taking off from the frigates in the Mediterranean and said it was just a beautiful sight as these missiles fly off to kill people in Syria. To see that this sort of military action, unprovoked, is beautiful, and expensive. What can you build with tens of millions of dollars? That you got to spend on one Tomahawk missile when you can actually, look at some of the names. Look at some of these missiles. Like the other missile that they use from the drones, it's called a Hellfire missile. It's like some kind of us Christians. This like hyper-Christian American government is producing Hellfire missiles to go punish, non-Christian people who have oil and stuff like that. Like, dude, like things are a bit upside down. So to see that if men become softer, and more open, more gentle, and more in touch with the earth and the sun and each other, these missiles are not even going to be produced or made. They're going to be taken apart, and we're going to be producing free energy and technology to help each other and help the planet. Creative technology. That Tomahawk missile is decreative technology.
Destructive, yeah. Something that's flagged for me is, you've probably heard about this monkey experiment, right? They put 5 monkeys in a cage, right? They put a ladder and a banana up the top, okay? And every time, like, this monkey attempts to go up to the top to go get the banana, they high pressure hose him and he falls flat on they high pressure hose all the other monkeys. Yeah, so they haze all the other monkeys. This dude goes up the top, gets the banana. He comes down and he gets bashed by all the others because they all got fucking high pressure hosed for him, and he went and got a reward. Cool. The next time someone else attempts it, they high pressure hose all the other monkeys, and that monkey gets raised by the other monkeys when he comes back down. This continually happens until eventually the monkeys figure out that if one of us goes up and gets the banana, the other monkeys are going to haze me because they're going to cop it, right? So none of them goes up and gets the banana. So this experiment continues, and no monkey's going up to get the banana. So now what they do is they swap out a monkey for a fresh monkey, right? Now this fresh monkey decides, I'm going to go up and get the banana because there's a banana up there, right? His instincts and his intuition is like, banana. So he goes up to get the banana, goes up, comes back down, from getting the banana. The other monkeys bash the crap out of him. Right? They continue this experiment until all the original monkeys have now been swapped out. Yeah? No more high pressure hosing, right? It's just you get the banana, you come back down, you get smashed, right? So now there's 5 new monkeys in this experiment.
Yeah.
They swap out a new monkey for another newer monkey. He comes in, attempts to go up, he gets completely throttled, right? He doesn't get to go get the banana. And the reason this is coming to mind is because for me, that is a classic example of how society plays out. Like when you ask why we do it this way, it's just the way things are done around here, son. It's like, what do you mean? Why don't we all just go up, split the banana 5 ways and enjoy ourselves? But that's not done. It's like no one goes up there because why? We don't know anymore, but it's just the done thing around here. And I think for me, what was coming up was, as you were sharing that, is that story reflects vulnerability. And the idea that, if I make myself vulnerable and there's 4 others in the room that are not willing to get vulnerable, then I'm opening myself up to potentially being knocked back.
Yep.
Right? And then that's where it's a real interesting paradigm where in this, I feel like where we're at now, it's like vulnerability, and I've heard this a few places now, is that vulnerability is the new strength. But it's almost like strength is being convoluted as courage. It takes courage to be vulnerable.
Yep. Well, I think this what's far out about competitive sport is these things keep coming up that actually create a I can sit here and bag out competitive sport until the cows come home, but I don't know if you say that in Australia, until the cows come home. It's a New Zealand thing.
No, we do.
I think the cows come home at the end of the day and you milk them. It's a thing. So I can bag up competitive sport, but at the same time, like the Springbok tour in New Zealand in the 1980s, brought New Zealand together as a nation of Maori and Polynesian people with white Pakeha people as a unified nation with two official languages who want to unify together against apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
Because of rugby that happened, it actually brought this beautiful synergy. You look at the who was the Aboriginal AFL player who had all this controversy a few years ago in Melbourne around, what's his name? Goodies, John Goodies.
Simon Goods.
Yeah, basically that polarized the nation around. He did it's like an Aboriginal kind of gesture after scoring a touchdown or whatever you get in AFL, and they wanted to make that illegal, and then it brought up a whole lot of racial tension in Australia and a lot of internal conversation around who are we in Australia. But it was mainstream football. Now you have this ball tampering incident in cricket. We're going full circle here. What's next? Swimming. So ball tampering. Now this guy is in a press conference, breaking down and crying.
Mm-hmm.
This takes a huge amount of vulnerability is emotional truth. This guy is emotional and he's showing it. If you're not vulnerable, you're just going to be like, fuck you guys. Yeah, I sanded the ball. I made a bunch of cash. I don't regret it. I'll do it again. Fuck cricket. And if he was just like cool about it, that's generally what people expect. This guy is breaking down, right? Now, that takes a huge amount of courage and vulnerability. Vulnerability to me is emotional truth, emotional transparency. What is actually happening in your body? You're not actually internalizing the emotion and trapping it in there and killing yourself. You're actually letting the emotion out. So actually being able to cry is a cathartic process which is very natural. However, a lot of young boys, men, teenagers, are constantly conditioned by their mothers, their dads, by men around them. Maybe not so directly, to not cry.
Yeah. Don't
cry. Stop crying. And this means that we get into the habit of internalizing emotions as men sometimes, a lot of the time. Now, if all the men and all the media and everyone at that press conference was like, look, we can tell that you really regret it, and look, we're sorry too, and we forgive you, and we want you to feel okay, and we can see that you made a mistake, and it's really beautiful that you're having this experience, and we all believe you can move on. And we can all learn something from this and hold space for him. Now, that will take a huge amount of courage on a national level. However, like you said with the monkeys, they just smashed him. They just smashed him in the media headlines, everything. National shame. What the Prime Minister said was just deplorable. The Prime Minister, the political head of Australia said, national shame, all this sort of thing. So can you see that everyone did the weakest thing possible, not most courageous, the weakest thing possible by actually ridiculing this dude? It's like, oh yeah, we're not as bad as him. He tampered with a cricket ball. He's the lowest of the low. We're all better than him. So everyone is reinforcing our sense of self. Oh, we are so integral. I'd never tamper with a cricket ball, would you? No, oh, never. I wouldn't even think about it. I'd probably punish myself if I even thought about it. So to see that this guy's now on suicide watch, so the culture we live in is re-perpetuating his sense of guilt, shame, and self-loathing. And to see that on a social, energetic level, we're being sociopathic together. Yeah. Which is, again, this is how nationalism runs when it comes to military conflict, sporting conflict, and everything like that. If you look at the sort of negativity between Australia and New Zealand when it came to the famous underarm bowl from the Australian cricket team to the New Zealanders in the 1980s, this created so much negativity between Australia and New Zealand through one single act of bad sportsmanship. And to see that, it takes so much more courage to be loving and compassionate and forgiving. Because we have a forgiveness and atonement deficit in our culture where this guy has been literally being ostracized culturally. He might have to move to another country where people don't know who he is. What's going to happen when he walks down the street now? This guy, the Prime Minister said he's a national shame. So, he's better off to go live on some far away island in Siberia by himself and think about what he did. And maybe when he reincarnates, we'll have a meeting and see if he should get another chance. But again, that's what it's like. It's this witch hunt mentality. Yeah, and we think about the witch hunts and all these women who are like midwives and healers and herbalists, in England and in the United States. 500 years ago, we were burnt at the stake and drowned for witchcraft. This witch hunt mentality that we don't understand these sorts of people, so we're just gonna get rid of them. This sort of witch hunt mentality is completely active in our culture, and it's very scary because we need to really look at that and look at ourselves and look at how we are supporting that with what we're thinking, what we're talking about, how we're socializing, and what we think about these people when we're told they're a national shame for tampering with a cricket ball. Yeah.
Sweet. I'll segue from that into.
I love a big segue.
I love a big segue.
Segue real hard. Yeah. And
the magic and the witchcraft. And I was reading something recently I was reading a bit of Nostradamus and talking about how anything that's reasonable technology, that is like technology from the future or inspirational, is going to seem like to the current day person as magic. So like if I was to talk to someone in like, let's just say the year 1000 and walking around with one of these in my hand and just like beeping across messages to other people, they'd be like, that's pretty much black magic what you're doing there, and just technology. And so I think that kind of gives me a nice little space to really open up a dialogue between what I really want to get to today is a lot of the mystical sort of stuff, but a lot of the anchoring that and with the science, which is what I think a lot of people got out of the last conversation we had together, which is there's a lot of spiritual pursuit at the moment, especially I feel a lot of people are on this spiritual pursuit, but a lot of people don't know where to turn or how to turn, and a lot of people, even when they're on the pursuit, kind of get discombobulated along the way as well, when there's certain things that, is that legitimately what it is or is it not? And I think last time when we talked about the quantum field, that had a lot of it really opened up this whole new, I want to say can of worms, but this whole new frame of reference for the way things were potentially going with science, like supporting the findings that we've had with some of these mystical occurrences. And I think something we touched on last time was my experience with my partner, and when she was overseas and she was having these amazing shifts because she was disconnected from her job and traveling and experiencing herself. And at the same time, I'm mirroring the same theme of development in my life, even though I'm not the one I'm still in my day-to-day job. And we touched on quantum entanglement, which since then I've still got baggage around the word entanglement, so I call it quantum connection. But yeah, the entanglement. I'd love to sort of touch on that. And perhaps you could shed light on where this all sort of, like, where the understanding around quantum physics sort of came from, like, because it was a branch, like, physics was physics for a while, but quantum sort of turned its head on itself, right?
Yeah, man. Physics was physics for a while. I mean, there's an idea called classical mechanics.
Yeah, exactly.
All right? And classical mechanics it more applies to Newton's laws and physical reality. And like they also call it like billiard ball kind of mechanics or billiard ball physics, where your physical thing that's going this fast and it's got this much kinetic energy and it's going to transfer it to this, and the kinetic energy is going to be dissipated in heat and sound, and then this thing's going to go over there. It's really good for like landing modules on other planets and everything like that. You've got projectiles, you've got orbits, you've got forces, you've got gravity. Classical mechanics. Now, this whole other idea of like quantum mechanics is pretty far out, because it means that we're having to look at reality in a very different way, because classical mechanics, it's very easy to interact with it because we can see it and feel it and smell it and hear it, this sort of thing. So
a direct experience.
That's right. It's like the apple fell off the tree and landed on Isaac Newton's head. It's like, okay, all right, it's just, ouch, there's something going on. So, I mean, the idea with entanglement's interesting. I think maybe if there's some issue you have around being locked in a dungeon and tied up in a past life and you felt entangled, maybe just like metabolize that away. It's amazing. One of the things I'm looking at the moment is total segue, but I'll come back, is like people who are attracted to certain types of like sexual what's the word? I can't remember the word. Fetish, let's say, where, hey, I want to be tied up, but I want to feel safe because I don't know why. And we're looking at this amazing book at the moment around moving traumas. Let's say people have a traumatic incident. Let's say your brother tied you up when you were a little kid and you freaked out.
Yeah.
Your body is naturally drawn to repeating the same events in a safe environment. So you can metabolize the trauma, right? So then you get your girlfriend to tie you up and you do some 50 Shades of Grey type stuff, and then you're not traumatized anymore. So this means that people are attracted to sometimes these some people would call it a sexual perversion. That's a ridiculous word, but this kind of sexual fetish or sexual kind of thing to actually feel safe or have your hair pulled or something like that. But then you can metabolize the trauma.
Yeah.
It's super far up. Yeah, it's super far up. So we're drawn to sometimes these things to actually heal. So entanglement, don't take terminology too seriously. If you're feeling triggered, it's something you need to look at. But terminology, man, we could sit here and argue about terminology all day, and it's a waste of time because our language is pretty cumbersome. So, quantum entanglement. All right, so there's this dude called John Bell who was from Belfast. He died in 1990. He's from Belfast in Northern Ireland, and he was a physicist. He's a tip-top physicist, and he wrote this paper in 1964. Which eventually, the paper wasn't called Bell's theorem, but there was a mathematical aspect to the paper called Bell's theorem. Bell's theorem is a mathematical idea that you can get two entangled particles, let's say, whether it be light, physical matter. This has been expanded on to be two entangled things can be two entangled people.
Yeah.
Now, Bell's theorem, when it was published, it didn't really get noticed much for a few years.
Yeah.
And there were certain people who read it and went, whoa, man, this guy's onto something. And it kind of got passed around the world, and more people were like, oh, man, Bell's theorem. And you into it? Yeah, I'm into it. It became like the cool thing to think about.
Yeah, the new veganism at the time.
Yeah, man. Bell's theorem is interesting because it wasn't verified straight away.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually been verified completely. And there's actually an experimental test now called the Bell test, where you can kind of test stuff. Now, Bell's theorem basically, I'll give you an example, is you can get some like a photon of light, and you can basically shoot it into a crystal, and this crystal is going to split that photon into two particles that are going to be it's going to have the same amount of energy, but they're going to be shoot out the other side of the crystal is two. And one, see that they're going to always display the opposite effect. So one might have an upspin, one might have a downspin, these two particles. And what they usually do is they'll shoot the light into this thing called a beta-barium borate crystal, which is it's an inorganic crystal compound, which is perfect for this. Now, they send the particles off down fiber optic pathways, and they can set up these different instruments to measure these particles. So one of the things they do, they have an interferometer. Okay, I'm not sure exactly how to say it, but basically that will test if the particle's spinning up or spinning down.
Mm-hmm.
So you shoot it one direction, and it might go 10 kilometers, and it gets this little because the fiber optics, man, you can just spin them around, and it'll go through this little thing, and it'll go, oh, it's spinning down. Its mate, 10 kilometers away, is always going to be spinning up. So they are linked together. Right, and this you can do this over great distance. Now, this gets really whack, is because you can measure one at really, really far away.
Whoa. Right?
And let's just say you measure a particular thing about it, and its mate is always going to respond in the same moment, even if they're split far apart.
And they're originally whole.
They're originally whole. Yeah, dude. Now, the other thing as well is there's an interaction through time as well. So you can send it 100 kilometers away, and it's let's say it's going to... One of the things they do is they do this quantum experiment where the particle is going to be a wave or a particle, so energy or a particle. And if you don't measure it, it'll always act like a wave, okay? If you measure it somehow, it will act like a particle. Now, so if you never measure it, it's going to shoot out the other end and it's going to behave like a wave of energy. So this is hard to conceptualize in your head, but you can look this up.
Oh, it's juicy.
So Bell's theorem, dude, gets into this idea that once they started testing this, is that these particles are linked through time and space. That means they're communicating with each other in a way that means that time and space are not an issue. So let's just say this particle's traveling at the speed of light and it's going to hit a measuring device in 100 kilometers. So it's going to take a little while to get there, speed of light. But then the other particle it's joined to goes through a test where it's going to become a wave or a particle straight away.
Yeah.
If its mate gets measured in 100 kilometers, that information of the measurement is going to travel back in time and make its mate behave like a particle, because it only becomes a particle if it's measured. But its mate hasn't been measured yet, so the fact that it's going to be measured in the future travels back in time and makes its mate behave like a particle.
Whoa.
That means you have a non-linear dynamic. That means that these particles are entangled through time and space.
Yeah.
Distance and time. So this is interesting because you can look at a movie like Interstellar, where the father is communicating with his daughter through time and space. Man, he's on the other side of a black hole, man, and he's communicating with her, and she's in a different time and space. He's far away, but he's also experiencing accelerating time, because he's the same age or something like that, but she's gotten older, So, but he's able to communicate with her, and he's able to communicate with her when she's a little girl too. So that's a way that these cool movies, last time we talked about Arrival, where it's talking about non-linear dynamics too, but that's a way that these actual discoveries in quantum physics are being shown to us in these movies, which is cool. But what's funny is these are fantasy movies, really. They're sci-fi movies, which actually pushes the agenda that these are magical things that aren't real.
Well, that's what I was saying before about the Nostradamus thing. It's like when technology.
Right. So Bell's theorem is really far out because it gained a lot of traction, particularly in San Francisco, which was where a lot of the in the United States in the 60s and 70s, there was a huge amount of funding for physicists when it came to weapons research and all kinds of different styles of research to combat the Russians. Including the sort of research into ESP and remote viewing. That means to actually have psychic spies spying on the Russians to see what they're doing. And they actually had a lot of success with this because these programs now have been, they're not top secret anymore. The information's been released. And if you're interested in that, look at, say, The Reality of ESP by Dr. Russell Targ, who was one of the pilots and creators of the first remote viewing program at Stanford Research Institute in the early 70s. So they were literally spying on Russian technology and having really clear. They would get a dude and go, "Hey, draw what's happening at this place," and then they would take a satellite photo, and this guy is drawing what's actually happening.
Bizarre, amazing.
Well, it's not bizarre. This is normal human ability.
Yeah.
And some of the best remote viewers are people who are just naive, kind of regular people. They just pull out of the office next door.
Wow.
So Bell's theorem is cool because. Stanford Research Institute, a lot of these physicists were there, and their funding was starting to fall in the 70s and 80s, and they started a group called the Fundamental Physics Group, I think that's what they're called, and this was also around the time of the psychedelic revolution in the United States. So a lot of the top minds in physics were also starting to dabble in things like mescaline and mushrooms and LSD and stuff like that, and opening up their mysticism. So mystics were coming from the East and from India, and this idea of mysticism was growing. And these people got really involved with the spiritual reality of Bell's theorem. By this point, Bell's theorem was starting to get verified with these sorts of quantum experiments that I just mentioned with fiber optic cables and stuff like that, photons of light. Now, so they started running conferences at the Esalen Institute in Big Sur, California, where they have international speakers and stuff like that. And they would also sit around naked in the hot pools and take strong liquid acid and discuss these ideas. The interesting thing about LSD at the time was that it would open up your perception more, and that they were realizing that, man, what the discoveries in physics had massive spiritual implications when it comes to how actually how all one, and how when you think a thought, because the people in remote viewing, like, how does a person able to send their consciousness to another part of the world and actually see accurate information. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Bell's theorem starts to help explain this, where we're able to like put our consciousness into a target and see what's going on, or put our link with another person, whether it be our dog or our girlfriend or our mum, and have premonitions or information and stuff like that. And this is also backed up by Dr. Sheldrake's work into the morphogenic field, where your girlfriend's about to call you, and then she calls, this sort of thing, where there's a information exchanged, and it also gets, this is also the theorem which backs up what we talked about last time about retrocausality, where information is traveling back and forward through time. So there's a really cool book, if you want to hear more about that, called The Hippies Who Saved Physics, by a guy called David Kaiser. And he's really studied this movement in physics, where a lot of the top physicists at the time, the guys who wrote books like The Dancing Woolley Masters or the Tao of Physics, where a lot of these guys wrote spiritual books about physics, to bring the findings in quantum physics to the mainstream, and literally empowered people as super beings. Really, a lot of people read this sort of science and realize that we're all very psychic, and that our senses, our ESP is quite natural, and that we there's a lot more to being in a human body than we realize. And this is happening also in nature as well. Like animals and plants are actually displaying a lot of amazing abilities in quantum physics too.
So this is bringing up a lot of things, but the one thing that is sort of the hardest to neglect is the idea of when you initially explain the experiment where one thing turns into two, they're spinning, they're connected. I really enjoyed. There's a whole other conversation to be had around observation and how that locks energy into becoming particular. But then the idea that that they're having this dance, these two, because they're originally one and whole. And then you sort of touched on it, but this idea that perhaps everything came from this one whole before there was this big bang, or, this is speculation now. And then the quote that sort of came to mind was, I can't remember who said it, but I'll put it in the show notes, was if something is available to the human experience, it is certainly available to me. I think it was the guy that did the masterminds, How to Think and Grow Rich, actually. I think that's the book it came from, because he used to hold these masterminds in his head with some of the world's most leading thinkers. It's like me sitting down and in my head having Alan Watts, Dr. Joe Dispenza, having all these amazing people collated together in a boardroom meeting in my head, and me sitting down and firing off a question to him and getting an answer. This is what he would do, but for a financial gain. This is how he was tuning into it. And he mentioned this, that and the quote that came out of it was, if it's available to the human experience, so if Richard Branson can be a billionaire, let's take that as an example, it's available to me. So that information is available to me. And that sort of came sort of to light for me as you were describing this, is that perhaps we're like quantum entanglement, sure, it's stronger amongst some people because of love and the emotional bonds that we form. But then we're probably connected to just about everything, are we not?
Yeah. All right. So let's just say we're all entangled.
Uh-huh.
Now, if that was happening and you were sensitive to it, there'd be too much noise. So there'd be too much going on. You'd be hearing all these different people's thoughts and stuff like that. Like Xavier in X-Men, when he goes into his cerebro machine and you can hear all the different people thinking and talking and everything like that. Yeah. And it's like, whoa, it's a bit much, sometimes.
Stay medicated to turn it off. Yeah.
That's right. So he's got to numb himself to come back to himself. Otherwise you just get lost in the field. Mm-hmm. So what people realize is that they can tune themselves into particular information. So the great American prophet Edgar Cayce, who was around up until about the end of World War II doing readings, he would go as a trance medium who would seem to just basically go into a trance and would seem to almost access Google and answer questions about people and medical data, stuff like that. Very accurate dude. And the way he described it was like a field of information, and he coined a term called the Akashic field. Uh-huh. So like this quote you're just talking about, how all collective human experience is available to you. Yeah, it's spot on. It's spot on. But you've got to tune into what you want to know. Otherwise, there's too much noise.
Right.
Yeah. You can only learn so much at once. And some people have an experience in their third eye or in their pineal gland where it's almost just white light coming through. It's too much information. You know, some people call it the white hole. It's just like, you're going to blow wide open. And this can happen with meditation, altered states of consciousness, stuff like that. It's too much information.
Uh-huh.
So now there is a physiological mechanism in the body for tuning into what you want to know. And this is when things get really far up. So let's just say you want to tune into a particular mathematician who was alive in Greece. When was that going on? Maybe 2,500 years ago, something like that, 3,000 years ago. And if we look at Bell's theorem, we can see that, you know, we can experience things through time and space. Well, how do I tune into this particular dude? Let's say I want to sync with Pythagoras and learn about what was going on for him. We know that Pythagoras would make his students fast, for example, for 40 days to purify their mind, body, and spirit so they could actually become good students. You know, these guys were pretty switched on. They knew some things. They also had amazing mystery schools and darkness retreats and stuff like that where you go sit in the dark and help activate the third eye and the pineal gland to have these sorts of information come into the body.
Access, yeah.
Access. No, so we'll have to look at how the pineal gland works. Okay. So there's a thing called piezoelectricity, which means that a crystal can receive a vibration, an etheric vibration, a frequency, like a radio frequency. You know, a radio frequency is an etheric vibration. Now, inside a radio transceiver, there's a crystal. And that crystal can pick up on, if the crystal is tuned to, let's say, 99.9 FM here in Byron Bay,
yep.
you can tune that crystal so it's gonna, you got static and you, hey, good morning, you know, it's 99.9, you know. So you've tuned the crystal until it's syncing. Your radio transceiver is syncing with the radio transmitter. It's synced. So that crystal is then going to produce an electric charge automatically based on the frequency of the radio. The radio waves come down to the crystal and then it produces an electronic charge, which is then picked up by the radio. It's boosted by a battery and then sent through the speaker. So you can hear what someone's saying. This is how radio transmitters, radio transceivers, and microphones function. Piezoelectricity. It's called the piezoelectric effect.
Yep.
Inside a fluid in your pineal gland, there are piezoelectric crystals that are listening in to fields of information that are out there. A lot of them, right?
Yeah.
And there's also a thing called piezoluminescent crystals, and this is very special, where this is a crystal that produces light when it picks up on a vibration. Yeah. So they can actually reproduce these crystals in a vast quantity in a laboratory. One of them is dimethyltryptamine, which is a lot of places in nature and all types of animals, but it's produced mostly in the lungs in the human body, and it's found in the highest concentrations in the pineal gland. Now, the interesting thing is, like, if you get like on Breaking Bad, you make a whole tray of this crystal, you know, and I think it's quite clear, but if you hit it with a hammer, it produces like a rainbow-like effect. That means that the energy of the wave that happens when you hit it with a hammer produces rainbows. So this crystal in your pineal gland produces light when it picks up on a particular field of information. Now, the inside of your pineal gland, the inside wall, has got a thing called rod and cone cells, and this is the same types of cells that are in your retina. And then these rod and cone cells are linked to nerves that go to your visual cortex in the back of your head, just like your eyes. That's why sometimes we see something before it happens, or we have a vision inside our third eye, inside our head somewhere, you know. We have a vision. This means that the crystals in the pineal gland, some people can't have these visions because the pineal gland is so calcified from bad attitude, bad diet, bad water, that sort of thing, refined foods. And this means that we can have, the crystals in our pineal gland can produce sensations, thoughts, information, visions, based on what is coming through etherically. So let's say you want to tune in with Pythagoras and you start to really focus on the guy. You know, you're focusing on the dude. And what's amazing about the human heart is it's this love and this connection with other people in the world. Is that the heart is like the thing which will tune in and fix on this person through time and space.
Mm-hmm.
The heart is how we find them. The heart is the secret to finding out the radio station. Okay, and then the crystals get tuned until we open up the frequency. Hey, good morning, Pythagoras. How's it going? What's the latest mathematical formula of the day? You know, what are you eating today? You know, this sort of thing. So you open up the channel. Now, through Bell's theorem and everything like that, we know that we can exchange data through time and space. And what you mentioned before is we're all actually entangled anyway. Okay,
yeah.
But if we were exchanging all this data with everyone all the time, there'd be too much noise, and you'd be like, you know, a case like Xavier. What's his surname? Xavier, out of X-Men. He's got a cool name.
To me, everyone that starts with Xavier ends in Rudd. So.
Is it? Yeah. Well, Xavier's a surname. Anyway, cool. X-Men. Anyway, now, so what can happen is you can open up a frequency with Pythagoras and start to experience his wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And he will start to experience you. Maybe you're the mathematician and you're training him back through time retroactively. I don't know. The thing is this is the ultimate mysticism, where we're actually tuning into people, information, and data, and sharing our human discoveries through time and space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, so it's the piezoelectric effect, the piezoluminescent effect, where the crystals in our body are able to sync and entangle with the target through time and space. Yeah, it's super cool. So, I mean, one of the amazing things that they found in quantum physics is called passion at a distance. The easiest way to sync with someone is when you're in love with them. Like, you're really connected, you know, you make a lot of love, and like you're a lover and stuff like that. And then you can put that person on the other side of the planet and really actually start to communicate with them, like send them, you know, particular ideas or thoughts. And the greatest level of ESP and psychic kind of transfer of information is what they call passion at a distance. It's the easiest for people who are in love, but it's instant. Yeah, it's instant. Right? And the thing is with this is NASA really likes this idea, because then you get people who are in love, and you can put one on Mars and one on Earth. And the easiest way to have instant communication is like, hey, we're in trouble, is in like asteroid shower, you know, and we're like going to go underground, you know, send help. Yeah. The easiest way to get that transmission is not through radio waves, where it's going to take however it is 6 minutes to reach Earth.
Yeah, bound it's to time instant. And space.
Yep,
yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so radio frequencies travel slower than passion at distance. So it's instant communication. That's the thing. It's instant through time and space. It's super lovely, you know. So, yeah, dude, passion at a distance. It's super nice. And they verified this more, you know, because they get like a EEG or like a lie detector, electroencephalograph, that sort of thing, where you can actually really read the electricity on someone's body, their pulse and blood pressure and all that sort of stuff, and check out how they're feeling. And then you can get their mum or their twin or their friend or someone they've only meditated with for an hour who they just met, and then you separate them by 1,000 kilometers, and then the other person, if the other person feels stress or anxiety, the person who's on the EEG machine will pick it up at the same time. So that person can go out around the world and log their day. You know, I felt really good, I felt really bad, I felt really stressed, and they can log their day exactly when these things happen. The person who's in EEG, who syncs to them back in the lab, is experiencing the same things at the same time, because they are entangled. And they wanted to entangle. They did it, you know.
Wow.
So the cool thing about entanglement is it's free will and choice. You can also disconnect. You know, and this is one of the things I help people, you know, with clients. You get people who they're having problems because they've gone through a breakup, and then, you know, oh, you know, my girlfriend, she's with this new guy, and I feel really stressed out and at night, and like maybe she's in this new sexual relationship, and it's almost like you feel like, you know, when they're making love, and it just makes you feel bad because you're feeling jealous or you're feeling let down as you're still in love with them. You can actually do a thing like an astral AVO, where you can actually sever the connection, where you can actually see the connection, like that fiber optic cable, you know, where the entangled particles are communicating, or whatever you want to do. You can just go, no, I've had enough, and cut them off. And they might call you and go, oh, you know, I really want to see you again, I just feel like you're not in my life anymore. They might call you. You can do that meditation and cut them off, cut the astral cord, cut the exchange.
Yeah.
And they're going to because you're sending them light. They're going to feel the cutoff, and they're going to want you back because they are.
Yeah.
You're still been charging them up by giving them attention, and that's the idea of photonic energy. Is when you give people attention, you're actually sending them light.
Mm-hmm.
Light, and the more light you send someone, the better they feel. Yeah, it's far up.
Yeah, right. Which one do I pick on? I do want to talk about morphogenic fields, but I guess when you were talking about the quantum, what's this idea around quantum encryption then? Because that's kind of out there then, isn't it? Because it's like encryption is all about coding stuff down, and protection comes to mind when you think about encryption. But then you talk about the quantum field and quantum encryption, and it's something that seems really far out there, but it's something that's currently being undertaken.
Yeah, it's happening all around us now. Like when it first came out, it was kind of the thing for exchanging large quantities of money and stuff like that. So let's say I'm a quantum encryption dude, and quantum encryption is a real straight person kind of science way of dealing with Bell's theorem in a really practical, physical way. So I'm going to produce some entangled photons, right? And I'm going to give half them to you, and I'm going to keep the other half, right? And you're over in you're over in Zurich, and I want to send you some information, some banking coding or something like that to wire you some money. So I'm going to send you a special code and block it into my computer at this side, and that code's going to come up at your end. Exactly. No one else can see the code except you, because you're the only other person with entangled particles, right? Now, if someone does break into the quantum connection and watch what we're doing, we can also see that we're being detected too, because the observation of anyone is going to create an electronic anomaly where you can be detected. So quantum encryption is the idea. It's the most advanced kind of encryption because it can't be watched in on. Often quantum encryption is I don't know if it has to be through fiber optics or not. I'm not like a hardcore physicist or anything like that, but quantum encryption allows for extremely sensitive data to be exchanged between two parties using Bell's theorem. Yeah. So what's happened now?
A field. It's like a field.
Yeah, dude. The latest finding this is where they're using Bell's theorem and quantum encryption using lasers as opposed to fiber optics. Okay. So what the Chinese did is they put a satellite up, and they realized that they could exchange quantum data between entangled particles through a laser beam over 1,000 kilometers between a satellite and a station in Tibet on the ground.
Yep.
Using a laser beam to exchange this information. And the idea with this sort of technology when it comes to shooting laser beams around the planet with satellites is to produce a completely secure etherical internet. Completely secure etherical internet. At the moment, our internet is not really etherical. It's through fiber optics. Yeah. Which means that it can be, like I said, someone can watch in on quantum encryption and influence it. So yeah, it's pretty amazing technology. So this dude who hardly got noticed in 1964 with his theorem, not only has it been verified experimentally, but it's also being used on a massive level in computer science and global communication. So the ultimate really is off-world communication, and they still haven't really nailed how this works. And they know that what's far out is they can now. So the quantum encryption is going between the fiber optic cables, but it's also now going down lasers. So what is the difference between that and passionate distance? There is no laser beam or fiber optic cable. If you are hanging out on like Jupiter and your lover is hanging out, in Houston, Texas, and you're sending her data, and they're like, oh yeah, this weather in Jupiter today, like he said, it's it's pretty irie, and oh yeah, he's having a margarita. I can actually taste it too. We're entangled, man. It's like good. He's using some fresh lime and stuff like that. He's hanging out on Jupiter. Passionate at a distance, you're just communicating. There's no fiber optic cable, there's no laser. So what this idea here is, there's actually like a what's entangling you? It's the heart, yeah. It's the field between your two hearts that are synced. So whether it's with the pineal gland or the heart, or it's the two working in unison, it's the crystals that are synced or whatever it is. It's the idea that, well, is there Because when we think about a laser beam or a fiber optic cable taking the particles, and they're going like this, we're still thinking about actual distance covered. And the reality is the distance isn't there. Okay? So the idea of quantum mechanics is the distance isn't there. If you're thinking about distance as being actually there, you're still stuck in a bit of classical mechanics.
Yeah.
So there's this idea of non-locality. The idea of locality is that it's all the way out there. The other idea with locality is Jupiter is all the way out there. And if I'm not looking, it's still there.
Yeah.
The other thing with like this whole biocentrism and stuff like that, consciousness creating reality, is that if no one's looking at Jupiter, it's not a physical mass anymore. It's an energetic probability until it's observed.
Yes, I was hoping we'd get here. Let's talk about probabilities.
Man. It's like the idea of talking, like, everyone thinks that locality is normal. It's like, I'm not sure if we talked about this before, but, if the tree falls down in the forest, does it make a sound? No. The tree falls down and it just makes pockets of air pulse through the forest.
Mm-hmm.
There's just pulses of air. If those pulses of air hit an ear, like an eardrum, okay, those pulses of air are translated through the systems in our ear to nerves to create the impression of sound inside our head. There's no sound out in the forest, okay?
Yeah.
So the idea of locality is, if no one's around, the tree's going to go smash,
Yep.
No.
Physics must reach biology for the biology to compute it into sound.
That's right. And then the deeper level with that is if no one's watching.
Does the universe exist?
Like the tree going over is an energetic field of probability, energy. It's not even a physical tree.
Mm.
Yeah, it's pretty deep and pretty confusing.
That was my first ever introduction into quantum physics at uni. Was if you're not observing, does it exist? And it was this whole new, and that was the existential question that came to me. Is like, if we all shut our eyes, shut our sound, like turned off all our senses, everybody in unison for one moment, does that mean the universe actually in that moment is gone? Very intriguing.
You are the container for the universe. Yeah? No container, no content. That means that the entire universe is expressing itself through you at every single moment. So you are the universe. Did we talk about rainbows last time?
No.
Okay. So imagine yourself standing in a field of flowers surrounded by puppies and you're watching a rainbow, right? Delete you. Is the rainbow still there? The rainbow is an anomaly between water in the atmosphere, light, and your eyes, or surrogate eyes like a camera. Okay. So imagine watching yourself, watching the rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
If you delete yourself and you just become the watcher watching you, the rainbow disappears. Because the rainbow is it's an anomaly in the eyes. It's not a physical phenomenon.
Right.
Okay. So,
but then how do all people see the rainbow? How do all people see the rainbow together?
Here's the problem: it's terminology. The rainbow. Now, let's just say you and I work in a really pumping cafe in Byron Bay, and we're driving to work, and there's a rainbow experience that is had by both of us. I'm driving to work on the same road as you, and I'm looking at this rainbow, and I'm just going, "That's that rainbow." And you're driving to work, maybe you're a few cars behind me, and you're looking at this rainbow going, wow, look at that rainbow. And then we get to work, and you look at me and go, dude, did you see the rainbow? And I say, And you're like, what do you mean? It was right there. How could you miss it? It was like fat rainbow, like double rainbow, man. I was like, no. I saw my rainbow. You're like, what? What about the rainbow? No, the rainbow. We saw the same. It was the same rainbow, man. Like, we just came together, different cars. No. I saw my rainbow. You saw your rainbow. Because the rainbow is happening inside your eyes and my eyes in a different orientation. Now, easy way to look at it. We're standing next to each other in the field looking at the rainbows. For you, it's a rainbow. For me, it's a rainbow. But because we're standing next to each other, we're both looking at different rainbows. Yeah. Because the water particles in the atmosphere orientated to your position are different to my
waves
position.
That are traveling back to your eye are different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to me, the water particles that are red, to you might be yellow. Because it's all about the orientation of the observer to the angle of the sunlight to the water. That's why when you're driving along in a car, the rainbow moves with the car. You don't drive past it.
Yeah, ever.
That's why you can't. That's the whole thing. Is you want to get the pot of gold that's under one end of the rainbow, you can't get to it. It's like the cosmic Irish joke, man. You can't get to it, even if you drive 300 k's an hour. It's, you know. So the pot of gold is like this. This is the great mystery, because you are the rainbow. You've already got the pot of gold. It's in your back pocket.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great metaphor.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Superposition. I want to come back to that because as I was tuning into this, it seems to be something that we're getting more and more awareness of, and like the model of the atom used to be that we've got all these rings and the electrons are they're holding each other statically in place due to repulsion and attraction, and they're in that place. And I picked up a textbook recently just looking at high school physics, and the model of the atom had changed. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, everything I learnt has completely changed. And now the electrons just have the probability of perhaps there's like a possibility that it's in this field. You might find the electron somewhere because it's anywhere. Until you observe it, it gets locked in to attraction and repulsion. Until you don't, it's literally just there's a possibility that it's there. And that comes back to the quantum field. And I'm not sure how this is anchoring in as something useful for the listeners, but it's super intriguing to me, in that things are, whether they're actually there or whether they're just like there is a likelihood of it actually being there.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about something bigger. Okay, there's a thing called a buckyball, which is a ball made of carbon atoms, and it's a larger quantum object, which is actually, it's not just an electron, it's a fucking ball, man.
Yep.
And it can be shown to have the same effect, where if that ball is not observed, it will behave like a wave of energy. It's a ball of atoms. Now, this means that you can do quantum experiments with it, where it will behave like energy. Okay. If you want to understand these experiments deeper, it's better to watch something like What the Bleep Do We Know, where they actually are talking about using buckyballs, named after Buckminster Fuller, the geometry cat. Now, so if it's not observed or not measured, the ball of atoms will behave like energy. As soon as it is measured, it will become a ball again, and you can measure a certain effect, whether it's spinning, where it goes, what it's hit, where it's been. Yeah. So what's far out about that is it starts to mess with this idea of like locality and observation in consciousness. This means that we make physical reality take place through a collective dreaming of observation. So the idea, like when you're going to open the fridge, we're pretty sure we know what's in the fridge. But before you open the fridge, what is taking place in that fridge, because it is unobserved, and this is shown with all quantum experimentation over and over and over and over again, what is happening inside the fridge is not physical reality until you look at it. What is happening inside the fridge is a lot of particles that are in superposition, and that superposition means they're not particles. They're behaving like energetic waves. And this is how they've seen that particles can behave as a particle or a wave of energy. Now, when the wave of energy becomes observed, they have a thing called a wave function collapse, where that wave will collapse into a physical manifestation that we can experience through our senses as like physical reality. In this sense, that our observation of energy is creating physical reality, and that without conscious observation, physical reality is energetic. Without conscious observation, there's nothing's happening. So the idea back in time of a planet Earth that was like a lump of molten rock floating around with no life on it, it doesn't exist, because a pre-life Earth is just a probability of energy. That's really trippy for like mainstream kind of idea of geology, idea of the Big Bang, the idea of human evolution, everything like that. Now, there's some pretty smart dudes out there. That guy Rudolf Steiner dude, like he talked about, he was like a full power mystic. He started to bring this sort of mysticism into like the way he designed schools and teaching children and teaching people.
Yep.
He has this idea that the human consciousness came here first, and our consciousness created the Earth. Created the animal kingdom, created the plant kingdom, everything like this. It sounds quite elitist, you know. Human consciousness we created everything, you know.
Yeah.
It's a bit elitist, but this idea is that consciousness came first.
Biocentrism, yeah.
Biocentrism, consciousness comes before physical reality.
Yep.
Now, the thing with what Rudolf Steiner said is that human consciousness came to the earth first and was the last thing to take physical form. The last thing to take physical form. Now, let's just say we all believe in the Big Bang. When we think about the Big Bang back in time, our conscious observation through time, our consciousness is non-local. That means that we can observe and think about things before they happen, after they've happened, everything like that. Our conscious observation of the idea of the Big Bang actually happening creates it in the past. So when we think about a pre-life Earth being here before us, that's our human consciousness actually creating a pre-life Earth retroactively. So the pre-life Earth can exist, but it's our conscious observation from the present moment of the pre-life Earth that is actually making it exist. So the idea of our conscious photonic energy or human observation can actually create the past. So we can design the Earth that we want for now retroactively to create it for the present.
Mm-hmm.
That's deep. Now, what's far out is this can be verified through different types of mystical research. You have a book called Soul Journey by Dr. Michael Newton out of Sacramento, California. He's not with us anymore, but he was a mainstream hypnotherapist who stumbled across the phenomenon of taking people into past lives, but also finding out what happened to them when they die in a past life and where they go before they come into another human body. And one of the he did this from a purely like clinical view. He didn't know anything about what he was researching, but he would just interview and record people about what happened in between lives. And they actually started to, through this clinical research and interviewing hundreds of people, draw a picture of what these people were saying about what was happening in between lives. And one of the things they would do in between lives was learn how to make physical matter, learn how to make microorganisms, learn how to make the most basic sort of plant and animal organisms using the ability of human creative energy or human conscious creative energy. So it's the idea that human consciousness as a form of light is this idea that actually our consciousness is light that is experiencing being inside a human body, but our body is not creating consciousness. Our body is more like a television set with an antenna on it that is capturing consciousness and producing well, maybe a TV is not the right idea, but this idea is that you don't look inside the TV to find the television presenter.
Yep. Okay? Got it.
Bruce Lipton more talks about the idea that we're like a Mars rover, and we're capturing the signal from Earth and we're like be able to like experience Mars. Everything like that. So this idea that we're capturing the conscious, our physical body can capture our consciousness from the source, whatever that means.
Yep.
We can experience this body. And the idea is when this body dies, our consciousness doesn't end. And I've personally had a very powerful near-death experience or an NDE where I experienced being light again. I was out and across the universe and I was light. And all the emotions of worrying about death or any of these sorts of anxieties or fears that are actually from the human body, those sorts of emotions, they're all gone. And you just feel awesome because you're a part of everything. And you experience non-linear time, non-linear space. And it's like whenever you want to go back into a human body, it's groovy, it's all good. And this is what most people experience once they die. It's like everything's fine. Everything is okay. And people can experience this through different types of meditations or altered states of consciousness to experience being a part of the entirety of everything through time and space. And it's a very blissful experience. So coming back to the human body from an NDE is often like, whoa, that's what's going on. And that means that they lose this deep fundamental anxiety around death is such a waste of time because it's not like that at all when we die. Yeah. So we're a part of it all, dude. So our consciousness is captured by the body, traverses the body, but is not generated by the body. And they're all different types of consciousness. There's consciousness in our gut. There's consciousness in our heart. There's consciousness in our head. There's different levels of people have all these words like spirit and soul and all these sorts of things, but there's multiple facets of consciousness in the system that produce our awareness. And the reality is that a lot of our consciousness is actually coming from our heart, not our head. Yeah.
There's a massive movement by a company that does amazing work called Heart Math. which verifies and experiments with a lot of the stuff that you're sharing about the heart being this receiver, and that if anyone's curious, heart math, great place to check out. A lot of scientists doing a lot of research in this area. So I think, as I want to ground some of this in now, it's like, okay, so all this idea of consciousness and, you know, the probability of perhaps things being real, how does that facilitate like awareness of all this? How does awareness of all of this translate to my personal healing and empowerment? Like knowing that this is all, you know, some part of the biocentrism is definitely, I can see there's profound effects of healing for that for me, like the awareness that, you know, what I'm tuning into is what's creating me. So, you know, and then if there is something that I am looking to heal within me, if there's a healed aspect of it somewhere out there, I can draw that in and I can definitely tune into that and heal parts of myself. But obviously your work is that of a healer, and holding this amazing awareness of all these deep, insightful themes, whatever you want to call them, nuggets of wisdom. How does that influence individual healing, and how does that play a role in all of that?
Yeah. Well, man, what happens is a lot of people start to get obsessed with physical reality. Okay. And they try and find meaning through material. Again, we talked about classical mechanics and obsession with the only thing that is real is what we can physically experience. And the more open you get, the more sensitive you get, the more you can realize that you can tune into fields of information, tune into people through time and through space. And you can start to simplify your life. Sometimes people are feeling a bit empty and they try to find meaning in their life by possessing material goods, possessing more cars, possessing more whatever it is, man, clothes, shoes, stuff like this. It's really quite thorough. People try to find meaning through material. And often as you start to tune into these kind of ethereal experiences where you can start to feel connected with everything, sometimes the most happy someone can be is, you know, you get a small backpack and you go backpacking, you go traveling. Sometimes, you know, people in their teens or early 20s, and they go out and find themselves, and they can come into some of the most blissful times of their life. Sometimes people find where before you get a house and a mortgage and a Porsche and a puppy and a wife, and, you know, or a husband or like, you know, 9 children, everything's simple. You might have a very small backpack, you know. So I had a friend who ran away from home when he was 17 from East Canada and went to Tibet and walked. Like, he just had a blanket and a little bag in Tibet, and just people looked after him and he had these experiences. And
wow.
to see that coming back to simplicity and spaciousness in your life can be one of the most blissful things that's available to us, and to also see that this is available all the time. And that sometimes when you're just sitting on the earth eating a piece of fruit in the sun with your toes in the ocean, this can be the most ultimate formula for bliss, because we can see that the human body, the human experience is this amazing conduit between the sun and the astral realms, or the stars, the planets, and the earth. These things come through us from both directions, and we experience them both. And to see that the idea of becoming obsessed with material goods is very redundant, and is also indoctrinated by a lot of different cultural ideas that make us think we need certain things to be happier. And, you know, if you want to get more into that, the way we've been trained in this way, there's a good book called The Hacking of the American Mind, which shows us that we are sold pleasure, and we're told that it's happiness, but it's actually just pleasure. That means that when we buy that 5th pair of shoes, or that latest Holden, you know, or this thing, we you get this new app, you get this new phone. These things actually give us pleasure. They give us pleasure. They make us release dopamine.
We're supposed to, yeah.
Well, some people they have a lot of pleasure. You know, the idea of getting that ice cream is really produces a lot of pleasure. But then you finish eating the ice cream, the pleasure's gone, right? And this means that you're releasing more and more dopamine into the system, which, again, like we talked about last time, dopamine degenerates your ability to release the neurotransmitter serotonin. So the more pleasure you experience on a hedonistic level, you are down-regulating your ability to feel happy in general. So we are sold pleasure under the name of happiness, but it's not actually happiness.
Uh-huh.
So now when we're talking about material reality, we start to think that everything that happened to us definitely happened. Everything that happened to mum and dad definitely happened to them. Oh, you can be like, oh yeah, my mum and dad had a hard time living in a prisoner of war camp in Singapore in World War II under the rule of the Japanese, and they had a hard time with starvation and getting beaten. And because of that, I'm paranoid around food, and I hoard food and stuff like that. And I'm going to blame the fact that my parents had an experience with the Japanese.
Uh-huh.
Or I can see that what we know about biocentrism and quantum physics and everything like that, we can see that that past timeline is a quantum possibility. And if I believe that's what really took place, it's no right or wrong. But if I send a lot of my quantum ideas back in time and I see my parents in that prisoner of war camp, then it's real.
Uh-huh.
And it will affect me as much as I like. Or we can let go. Now, the architecture of letting go is quite far out for a lot of people because I might be attached to the fact that I have all these issues because of what happened to my parents. And I don't want to change because changing might be difficult, but I'm comfortable with the fact that I have these, alcohol addiction and like a materialistic hoarding addiction and a food addiction. And so the idea of actually becoming me when the future and past don't exist is very scary and unknown. And I don't know who I would be if I didn't have these issues to attach myself to in the past. Yeah, people are like, oh, I was premature 10 weeks and I was put in an incubator and I wasn't touched. When a baby isn't touched after birth, the brain doesn't grow.
Yeah.
Okay? They've realized that when a baby is in an incubator to stay alive, it's premature, it needs to be touched and stroked, especially by its mother. And so this human connection is taking place so that the brain continues to grow and produce the right connections for the right neurological connections for human connection and connection to everything else. So if I'm an adult and I can blame all my problems on the fact that I was in an incubator, that means that I'm sending my photonic projection back in time and saying that really definitely happened. However, I am the creator of my reality, the master of my universe, and I can change anything I want, and I have the ability to change my photonic projection. So you can move into more of a reality of like impeccable positivity where like, my childhood was awesome, my parents awesome, I'm on a beautiful planet, and right now in this present moment, everything is great. That's all that's actually real. Once we're not observing the past doesn't exist. When we're not observing the future doesn't exist. There are some Aboriginal populations in Northern Australia that don't have a word for future because they know it's a redundant concept that there's no point talking about the future because it's going to send your photonic energy into reality that doesn't exist. That means that if we get fascinated with the past and future, this is the source of most anxiety. You are constantly regretting the past and you're constantly worrying about the future. That means you're leaking your photonic conscious energy into realities that don't exist. But at the same time, when you leak conscious energy into those realities, you can actually produce something that does technically exist and influence it back in time. So here's another quantum experiment, and we can get real science on this if you want, right? So here's a quantum experiment which can help verify this for people who don't believe anything I'm saying. All right, so let's get a little cluster of, this is real, by the way. So you get some beryllium ions, okay? You get a little cluster of ions. And we're going to shoot a radio frequency of those ions. And let's say those ions they have an energetic state. Let's say right now they're energetic level 0, like a temperature, let's say. And I'm going to shoot that laser beam at them for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, they're going to reach level 100 of energy. That's how much energy they're taking, right? And let's just say it takes 10 seconds for them to reach level 100. They go from 0 to 100. Now, this is interesting because we can also observe how the temperature going up, let's say. Now, at time 0, we can take a measurement, they're level 0 temperature. And then after 10 seconds, we'll shoot them with the laser. So shoot them with the radio frequency. And after 10 seconds, they're going to be at level 100 energy, right? Cool. Nope, fine. It's like putting a piece of toast in the toaster. After 2 minutes, the toast is cooked, right? So after 10 seconds, those beryllium ions are cooked. They're done, right? They're at their next energy level.
Yep.
Now, let's just say every half a second, right? every half a second, we're actually going to take a measurement, okay, of these things. So every half a second, that means that like every half a second, they're going to go up 5 energetic levels, 5 degrees, let's say, up to 100.
Uh-huh.
Each time we observe it, it's going up to 5. We know it should be 5 because the whole time it's going to take to 100. So it's going to go. It should be an even graph.
Yeah.
Each time we look, it drops back down to 0. So when we're not looking, the temperature goes up half a second, and then we look at it, it goes back down to 0. Then we're not looking, it goes up. It goes up again, then we look at it, and it goes to 0. So if we're going to graph it, the graph will just be like, and at the end, it's still 0.
Not at 100.
It's not at 100 because we were watching, right? Now that's far up. So let's just say you look at let's say you're actually taking the energetic readings, but you're not looking at it as the experiment's going on. You're like, oh, I'm not going to look. If I'm not looking, is it going to heat up to 100 after 10 seconds? Just because you're taking the readings and you look at it in the future, it affects the experiment retroactively. That means that even if you look at the readings after the readings have been taken in the future, it's still going to be at point 0.
Yeah.
Because the experiment still knows that you're going to look at it in the future, because you're looking at the data in the future, goes back in time to fix the energetic state of the beryllium ions. Now, let's just say, hypothetically, when you were 5, your puppy got run over, and you saw it happen, and it was bad. It was a bad thing, right? Now, we all know that when we have a traumatic experience, we tend to keep thinking about it and revisualizing it.
Yeah.
Okay. So for that next couple of weeks, you keep thinking about seeing your puppy get run over, and you feel the same emotion. You feel the same anxiety, you feel the same stress, you feel the same grief, the same fear, all that sort of thing. It keeps coming up. And then, maybe you develop a bit of a personality disorder around puppies, and you never want one again because you become convinced that it'll be run over.
Uh-huh.
And you spend the rest of your life constantly thinking about that puppy. And you're constantly sending photonic energy back to that reality and reinforcing its physical existence affecting you in present day. That means that you are, in the present moment, still trapped in the trauma of being 5 years old. Now, what we're approaching now is the idea of quantum medicine, regression therapy, letting go, whatever you want to talk about. But the idea with quantum medicine, as far as I like to think about it, is that the past is an optional construct. Okay? That means that if you stop talking about it and stop thinking about it, and you stop going to, like, let's say every week you have to go to like a dog loss anxiety and paranoia anonymous group, and you sit there in the group every week and drink wine and talk about how much you miss your puppy from 30 years ago, and you just keep living in the reality of that, and you associate with people who lost their dog too, and you just kind of keep re-perpetuating the past.
Yeah, reinforcing the cycle.
Yeah, or you let go. What does letting go really mean? I'm going to stop talking about it, I'm going to stop thinking about it, and I'm going to stop using that story to give myself attention. Stop using the story to give myself attention. This is very important because we're taught in our culture that drama and loss and all these sorts of things are cool because we watch all these movies and all these dramatic TV shows. Things go wrong. So we think that if things go wrong in our life, that makes us more interesting, just like the TV show. Okay? And this all applies to the archetypal concept. Archetypal means a pattern of behavior of the warrior's journey. This means that, when in Star Wars, when Luke sees Obi-Wan Kenobi gets killed by his father, that's a pretty bad moment. Everything's pretty bleak. And they get back in the Millennium Falcon and they're flying away and they're like, man, it's a low moment. And everyone feels that. It's a low moment. Obi-Wan Kenobi got like chopped up, and disappeared or something like that. And it's a low moment. And a lot of movies operate in this way where there's a low moment where all hope is lost. And this is an archetypal pattern where before you kind of have this re-emergence and the warrior re-emerges, this archetypal journey, the warrior's journey, where you have this triumph in the end and you usually vanquish like a father figure where Luke defeats Darth Vader, or in Avatar, the blue Avatar bloke defeats the bad army general, at the end. There's like that kind of father figure. There's this archetypal, in movie script, they call it structure. And if you're interested in understanding this energy, look at the Synchronicity Key by David Wilcock, where he actually goes into a lot of films and we like these movies because of the structure, because it actually applies to an energetic archetype or pattern of behavior which exists in the universe and inside us.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, the worst day of my life is when my puppy got run over, people will actually like to sync with that because they can apply this sort of tragedy to their own life.
Yep.
That's why we like drama. It's like we like movies that have all sorts of dodgy stuff go wrong. So if looking at this quantum theory superposition, if we're not looking at the past, it's just energy. If we're not looking at the future, it's just energy. That means we don't have to worry about the past because we're not thinking about it. We don't have to regret the past. We're not thinking about it. We don't have to worry about the future because we're not thinking about it. So all of our photonic energy is in the present moment, right? Whoa. If everything's in the present moment, we're really in the present moment. Consciously and subconsciously, we're all here. We can look at what's going on and everything's good. We're sitting in the sun and we're eating a mango and we're like, I feel safe. I feel nourished. I'm connected with the earth. I'm connected with myself. I'm connected with whoever I'm with, whether I'm with someone or not. And even then I know that time and space aren't real, so I'm just connected with everyone, which is pretty groovy. And I'm connected with this mango. I'm connected with the spirit of the tree. I'm connected with the sunlight in the mango. And life is amazing. How does it taste? Like, what a beautiful human existence. I'm going to write some poetry and pick some flowers and run around naked. Whatever, man. But what I mean is, we're not worrying about the future. We're not paranoid about the past anymore because they're not real. Yeah, they're constructs. The only things that hold those constructs in space, the only thing that holds those constructs in place is our photonic energy on them. Okay? So the more we become present, all these different spiritual teachers talking about becoming present.
Yeah, be here now.
That's it. Because they know that putting our energy into things that in the future and past, they're not real. They're not real. And that is basically means that we're leaking our personal power. And by leaking personal power, that means that we're leaking photonic energy. We're leaking light. Light is non-linear, non-local. That means that our light leaks out of our body and dissipates into the future and past. And is draining our personal power, is draining our life force by how we think. Because where we think is where we send light.
That's a call to action.
It's a big call to action. It's kind of hard to explain, but damn, it's a lot harder to do.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, and the more however you want to do it, whatever mechanism, if people are interested in this, they can get in touch with me. I do workshops and stuff like that and personal coaching. But however you want to do it, the more you come back to present through a process of letting go is wicked, because anxiety is ripping our culture apart. Yeah. Especially these young kids and their iPads and iPhones and tablets and everything like that, where you've got 10 tabs open and your conscious photonic energy is going through those tabs and on your phone and on your tablet and, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube and all that. So it's just like going out. So what the present moment's not being charged up at all. Yeah.
Amazing. I could keep you here all day.
I've got a big cup of mate. I'm good.
I've got to try and wrap it up. I don't know how. I just want to keep opening up more holes and more holes and more black holes.
We can start looking at how photonic energy can be hijacked and used for nefarious purposes. Okay. So let's just say I tell you about something that happened to me that isn't true to reinforce my sense of pseudo-masculinity. Let's just say, I hooked up with these three girls and we went to this desert island and, had an amazing time. We was naked the whole time. We were eating mangoes and coconuts and I just make up this total. Maybe I was there by myself in reality and I'm just there's all these girls there. It was super amazing. You would love embellishment on. Yeah. Now, if that didn't actually happen, when I describe something to you, you straight away have a visualization of what it is. Right? That means I'm pulling your photonic energy into a dimension that didn't really happen. I'm robbing you of the light in your photonic energy. I'm robbing you of your personal power by lying to you and pulling your photonic energy into a dimension that doesn't exist. Just through lying to you.
Wow.
And reinforcing my personal power. Let's say I have a really beautiful, intimate connection with my lover, and then I tell you all about it. Right? And it really happened. In this case, you are having a visualization of my intimate connection with my lover. This means that you become an observer to the intimate connection with my lover as it happened, as it took place. My intimate connection with my lover, who's it for? It's for me and my lover, not for you. But I'm dumb enough to tell you all about it and then bring you back into the bedroom with my lover, and then you're there too. And then you are actually influencing our intimate connection as if someone's watching, which is taking away from the intimacy because we're not as present, because we feel like someone else is in the room, which is you, because I brought you into the connection by telling you about it and giving you all these details, which means that the intimacy is not as present anymore, retroactively, which will decrease my personal power and decrease my connection with my lover. That's called internal kung fu. That's a very advanced way of working with things like Bell's theorem and working with photonic energy. Whereas I'm pulling you into a situation which may have happened, which influences me and decreases my personal power and my level of integrity, because my lover probably wouldn't want me to tell you that. However, this level of pseudo-masculinity and kind of this sexual one-upmanship, oh, you know, like, who did you hook up with? What happened? These guys are boasting and bragging about what they did and what they got. We live in a culture where that is socially acceptable, but it is actually not so great. However, if I'm in like a different type of relationship where me and my lover are in an agreement where we tell everyone else about all this sort of thing, there's no right and wrong, but it's still taking away from the intimacy of the connection, right? So it's really far out, man. And it's oh man, we can go really deep down.
So truth and energy.
Truth and energy, yeah. At the same time, like, you know, stories and stuff like that are interesting because we're telling each other about the past, and it's a good thing. You know, that's good to share stories. But I think to learn what we need from the story, but don't stay fixated on the story or in the past. You know, if you have a negative experience and you make a bad decision, like you lie or you hurt someone, don't beat yourself up. You need to learn about how that affected you, how that affected other people, how that affected everyone around you. And to not beat yourself up, and to know how to learn how to not do it next time, how to do it differently next time. So it's amazing once we then say my lover finds out that I told you all this stuff, and then she's upset, you know, and then I'm upset, and then I'm upset with you for telling someone else. Consider how my breached integrity actually created a vortex of negativity where everyone feels like they're just leaking energy and they're pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trespassing and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and this is the sort of thing that can damage people's hearts and close the heart down. And we don't want to do that because that's going to turn us into these like mindless latte crushing brutes driving around in these and you know, tampering with cricket balls and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah, perfect. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So on a big level, this means like the other thing with like photonic energy is walking the talk. That means that if I'm telling you I'm doing something, I've got to do it. Yeah, like I don't have the right to talk about any of this stuff if I'm not doing it. Okay, so if I'm talking about respecting women, but I'm actually behind closed doors really disrespecting my girlfriend, or like am a part of some kind of blog where I'm like hating on women in general, but then I talk about or teach a workshop on respecting women and why we need to like love the earth and love women and love each other's sexualities. That means that my resonance is not going to be on. That means that a part of my transmission to you is going to feel off. Yeah? I'm not going to feel genuine. That means that you actually can tune into my frequency and tell that there's something wrong.
Something's off. And you can tell when that's like the old guru syndrome, right? When it's something's not right.
That's right. So walking the talk is a very important part of this idea of like warrior consciousness or internal kung fu. Is like if you're gonna share these sorts of ethical concepts and philosophy and this sort of stuff, you got to do it. Otherwise, you're actually what you're sharing is non-integrity, and you are creating this this teaching in the world of non-genuine way of being, and so it's a huge thing to walk the talk, because on a deeper level, if I tell you something, you know, around ethics and integrity that I'm not actually doing, I am saying one thing and doing another. That means that there's energy getting trapped in my body. When energy gets trapped in the body, it vortexes. So let's say there's energy. Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I've been doing these beach cleanups. You know, it's really amazing. But I'm like totally not doing it, right? But I'm telling you that I am. That means that my action is doing one thing and my words are doing the other thing. So these energies meet in the body and create these etherical little like tornadoes. This is pretty crazy stuff. Now, this little vortex of energy starts to pull in. It's like a little, it's got its own gravity. It starts to pull in light and trap it in the body. That means that if I'm not in integrity and I'm not doing what I'm actually saying, I'm trapping energy all through my body, and I'm getting more and more sick and more stiff and more agitated. So if you're actually doing the things you're saying and you're walking the talk, that means that your body's going to have more and more free-flowing energy. That's very advanced. But that if you are actually saying one thing and doing another, you are going to eventually trap more and more energy in your body. And when you trap energy in your body, you're pulling like light into the body, the light will actually take physical form. So this means that if you have a liquid, it's like a jar of copper sulfate, and you use this in school, and you hang a little bit of metal in there, and the crystals are formed on it. Yeah. Yeah. There's enough energy in that copper sulfate. There's enough density for the crystals to appear. Now, where's the data for the crystals come from? It comes out of space. That means that if there's enough energy trapped in the body, it will actually crystallize into physical form. And the crystals, the physical form, the crystals are things like cysts and cancers and arthritis and disease and stuff like that. So crystallization in the body of the energy that we're capturing through our lack of integrity can create illness. This is why stubborn people get people who just, some people get like arthritis and this sort of crystallization. There are physical causes too around diet and lack of detox, exercise and stuff like that. But we can also make ourselves quite sick by how we think and how we communicate. Yeah, this is internal kung fu.
What's coming up when you're sharing that is there's whole cultures that are struggling. Partly my culture is Indian, and actually my heritage is Indian, and there's a lot in the Asian culture about keeping up appearances, and it's full on. It's full on. The level of the word that comes to mind is deceit, but it's because it's so culturally widespread. Deceit seems too heavy-handed because it's so culturally accepted.
Oh, everyone's doing it, so it's okay, right?
Yeah, it's full on.
If you're lying and I'm lying and Mum's lying and Dad's lying and cousin Dave's lying, it's all right.
Yeah.
But then why are we all dying when we're 45?
Yeah, it's full on. And I think a lot of that comes, again, and I think this kind of comes full circle with what you were saying before, and that little monkey example, which we talked about. It's like, again, the strength is in the courage to stand for what is the easy, like it may not be the easiest, but it's the cleanest way to operate, the operandus mundi. Yeah.
Well, give me an example of what keeping up appearances means to you when it comes to your cultural background.
Okay, this is going to go super personal, but I'll share it from integrity, right? So my mother owns a property in New Delhi, and her tenant in India, it's a weird society, right? So her tenant's been living there for 10 years, right? He's been living there long enough for him to now sort of, maybe energetically he feels like he's been there for a long time, and whatever. He's decided that he owns the place, and so he goes away and gets this paperwork made up that looks, and it's in India it's like they call it a registry, a notary registry.
Mm-hmm.
And because my mum's documents were made ages ago, his documents, even though they're dated to prior to my mother, they look more original than my mum's documents.
Because they're shinier?
No, not because they're shinier, just because they've got all the things that they need to have said in them, because 10 years ago there weren't these things that were stipulated that you needed to have in them, right? Mm-hmm. So he's got more official looking documents than my mother. And in order to... Actually, I got a better story. Hash that. Let's go back. Okay, so my mum invests in real estate in India. So she's got she's got this land, and she wants to, someone comes to her cousin comes to her, And he brings these 4 people together and he goes, these people want to buy your property. Let's say the property is worth, let's say $200,000, okay? And they're offering her $300,000. So she's like, wicked sick, let's do this. And then I'll go buy these 2 little allotments which have nothing on them, and I'll buy them for like, $150 each. I'll turn one thing into 2. Good savvy business doing, right? And so she does exactly that. Her cousin brings these people to her. Sweet, let's go. Let's create this deal. They sign the paperwork. You're getting $300,000 for this property that's currently worth $200,000. She knows she's getting a good deal, but these guys are developers apparently. They got way more money coming out of that. They can afford to pay a little bit of a premium. And so she's now gone and been like, cool, well, I'm only in India for 4 months at a time, so I better go secure this land and tee myself up. She pays a deposit on this new property, like these 2 things out of her pocket, hoping that the money will come in, the deposit will come back to her, she'll be sweet. This gets drawn out for ages. And she's coming close to the end of her stay, over 4 months now, and it's like the sale is not finalizing, it's not progressing. And she eventually turns around to, she ends up quite stressed out because she's making repayments on this property, which money was meant to come from here to there, and it's not happening. So she's stressed out. And my mum's quite an emotional being. So she decides to, and it's interesting how this all manifests, right? There's a guy, so by culture, I'm Sikh. So my dad wears a turban, has a beard, and there's a saying in our culture actually that truthful living is higher than the truth. So truth is a virtue. And in the conglomerate of 4, there's this one guy that's a Sikh. And so she approaches him because she's like, look, my husband is also a Sikh. He's from the same faith you are. I want to understand what's going on here. She's at his house. She's basically crying on this guy's shoulder. She's like, I want to know why you guys aren't facilitating, the conglomerate of the 4 of yous, aren't facilitating my money so that I can...
What have I?
Yeah, basically, tell me what's going on. And he's turned around and eventually he's broken down and he's gone, okay, look, what's happened is we've bought your property, right? And you've signed over, but we're waiting for, and I don't know how the legalities and the fine print of this, but we're waiting for a buyer to buy it from us for $400,000. And so
they didn't have the money.
No, and your property is just hanging. But you've given us this executionary power. And she did that because my cousin is one of the 4 in the conglomerate. So that's my cousin that's duped her.
And what did cousin say? He duped her on purpose?
Yeah, totally.
All right, so
totally. But there's more to this. There's more to this, right? So this, from there, it goes away to, okay, now how does she get her money? How does she at least get out of the other 2 properties and go back into her own property? Like, what's the resolution here? So she's fortunate enough that her dad is really good friends with the Chief Police Commissioner of India, right? So, of New Delhi, sorry. So she goes to him and she goes, look, this is what's happened to my situation. I, at the very least, just want my property back. This is such a head fuck. Can you help me with this? And he goes, okay, these 4 shady conglomerate, where's their office? They obviously, to get these papers notarized and all that sort of stuff, they have to have an office. And she goes, this is their office. And he's like, cool. So this guy is the commissioner of police, right? So he could easily just walk in and be like, this is fucked up, you've done the wrong thing, sort it out, rah, rah, rah. He comes up with the scheme that he is going to go, right, dressed as a tax auditor. And he's going to go audit these people, and she has to send a fax of her documents to this office so that when he gets there, he inspects these documents and goes, this is not lawful. He's the commissioner of police. Why the fuck does he have to go under the pretense of being someone that he's not? Right? But this is what happens. So he goes as the tax man and he rocks up at the office. He has his conversations with them. He says, this is not lawful. What have you done? And they're like, oh, right. We'll sort that out immediately. Within a couple of weeks, my mum's money's back to her. Everything's fallen the way that it should. Like nothing happened. What a waste of 6 months of my mum's life and energy and that sort of stuff. So my cousin deceived my mother. Yeah, this conglomerate of 4 deceived my mother. Then my mother found someone to tell her the truth. Then the commissioner of police can't even be honest, right, and be himself to rectify the situation, he's got to go with someone else in society to go rectify the situation. And it's like that level, like the dishonesty is so present on every level of society in that culture.
The commissioner of police dude has got to save face with his bros. Do you know what I mean? Because maybe he's got some fingers in some pies too, so he's got to pretend to be someone else. Do you know what I mean? Because maybe he knows these dudes too, or something like that. So, and can you see as well the sociopathic behaviour of seeing that these guys know your mum's got the money and that she's nice?
Yep.
Yeah? And to see that the level of vulture energy, this person's nice, they got money. We can probably fuck them over. But we're disconnected enough from ourselves and the earth and the feminine to be comfortable with it. Because if we were actually connected and really good guys, we wouldn't be able to live with ourselves. But then she held that guy accountable and he broke down. He was like, look, I'm sorry. You know, I made a mistake. You know, so it's amazing to see there's a toxic masculinity issue, there's a sexism issue, you know, men versus women. But then there's just the general idea that they were being vultures and not telling the truth systematically on purpose. Yeah, they call it a sting. It's a sting. It's a scam.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to see that a sting or a scam on that level, especially if someone who's nice and naive, you're not being Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really far out. And your story is an amazing archetypal example of so many subtle issues that are wrong all over the world. And it's amazing how, as men, when a woman comes and holds us accountable, to see that as an amazing opportunity where she is sensitive enough to ethics and integrity that she can actually teach us what to do, how to do it next time, and that she can actually be in her body enough and connected enough to her heart that she will love us and forgive us and give us another chance. So we have the opportunity to become these warriors of love and light that the world needs.
So that's something I don't understand, because my mum forgave my cousin. I just don't get it.
But that's the thing. That's the lesson for you too.
I know.
Yeah?
I know.
Is the forgiveness and atonement that your mother gave to your family member. Do you know what I mean? Like, she can see he's not evil. Yeah? Whether it was from fear or scarcity or bad cultural programming, she can see that there is good in him. Yeah? And that loving him through his problems is exactly what he needs, even though if he doesn't know that's what he needs. And that your mother's example to you is a really good example of how you can be out there in the world. And also a good example of the sort of woman you want to have in your life, or the sort of women you want to have in your life, or the sort of daughter you might want to have in the future. When it comes to women being absolutely in touch with their hearts and loving men through their impurities out to the other side, so we can move into the spiritual revolution together as men and women who listen to each other. Because this world needs men who listen to women. The best thing we could do right now on a global level is replace all political leaders with women. It's simple. Because what men have been doing in political power, for the most part, has not been working. We need women are so much more in tune to their mysticism and to their connection to the earth to make quick, clear decisions that are going to rescue us, basically.
Yeah.
It's super simple.
I was having this conversation.
Yeah, man, thanks for the story, man. Thanks for the story.
I was having this conversation on the last podcast, and it was literally, I was just sharing the fact that sometimes it feels like my girlfriend's working on a seventh sense while I'm working on a sixth sense, because their sixth sense is already dialed in. They're working on the seventh.
Yes. Yeah. There's this idea of womb consciousness, where a woman's sexual center is like an extra third eye that is able to perceive the future, able to perceive things in other places, and is the source of her joy and creativity and sense of self, and that we really need to hold space for women and make them welcome them to feel safe and cherished and loved. And that means that their sexual center, their creative center, is gonna blossom in a way to create new life, but when a woman sings, when she's feeling safe and whole and creative, her voice is going to heal the earth. And women need men to take care of them when they're pregnant and take care of them when they're raising children and to help them out, and so we can raise children together. So it's when women feel really safe and nurtured and loved and supported, that is the love and safety that is going to grow the new baby's brain. In the same way her brain is developed, where she feels loved and supported and connected to the sun and to the earth. And we're going to produce children who are not perpetrators, children who are not liars, children who are connected to the universe and to the earth. And that's it. Yeah, because those children, as their brain develops, children's subconscious is swimming in their parents. And if we are loving and supportive of each other, then we're going to produce children who are just divine. That's it. Yeah.
And that's our future. Or our now.
Both and.
Amazing, brother. Amazing. So I'm going to bring it gently to a close. I think we've talked a lot. Last time we talked a lot about anyway, I'm trying to answer your questions for you. Shut up. Okay, so this time around, Times Square, New York, you've got a billboard and you can write whatever you want on it. What are you writing on it now?
Oh, man. Oh, love is all there is.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. It's much more inviting than last time. Last time it was stop it.
Okay, man, I don't know.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Loving the evolution. Awesome. And I know this is probably going to be a tough question, but it's exceptionally one that I want to ask you is, if there's one book that we want to drop to share with people, what's one book? I know it's really hard to disseminate it that way, but with where you're at now and you want to share with people.
Man, for right now?
Yeah.
Right now, The Hacking of the American Mind.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
you mentioned that.
This is so relative because it shows it's exposing the fact that, look, man, we're all using these MacBooks. We're all using this electronic shit that we're addicted to. Okay, This book is like, all right, this is what's up. The more you're addicted to the stuff, the less happy you are. If you don't believe that, we're going to go right into the neuroscience of how basically anything that is producing excessive amounts of pleasure is literally destroying your brain, and means that you're looking for more and more pleasure. Pleasure, dopamine, neurotransmitter. The surface of every cell in your brain, if it gets hit with too much dopamine, dopamine's gonna blitz them. So they reduce the receptor sites for dopamine, right? That means that you need more and more dopamine because there's less receptor sites. So you need more and more pleasure. You need more and more Instagram, more and more Facebook, more and more YouTube, more and more like Mars bars and chocolate and shit. So this book goes right into neuroscience of how all of the things that we're sold under the guise of happiness are actually decreasing our ability to feel happy, because the more and more dopamine we experience, the more we are diminishing our ability to produce and experience serotonin.
As you're sharing this with me, there was recently Elon Musk made the claim on Twitter that he wants to buy Facebook. And he made this video about what he wants to do with it. And there's this rocket that goes up into the sky, and two parts of the rocket fall back to Earth. And one part of the rocket that falls back to Earth hits this big red button that says delete.
Nice.
And I think it's tuned into the same consciousness that you're sharing that from, which is, he's tuned into basically that these things were programmed with the intention of how your mind operates and how to hijack your mind in the most effective way possible. And so, I think that's kind of the intention that he was sharing that from, to try and do humanity a service.
Yeah. Dude, that book, just by the way, I just looked it up, is Robert H. Lustig. W-S-T-I-G is the author of The Hacking of the American Mind. Fantastic. And if you want to get a little overview of that book, you can tune into Coast to Coast AM out of LA in the United States. That's Coast to Coast AM, which is a website, and you can tune in, look up Dr. Robert Lustig on there, and he's got a great interview about the book. And it's just
awesome,
amazing to see how these companies are using the primitive aspects of the human brain to addict us to time-wasting activities, which are taking us away from helping each other out and loving each other and being present and helping the earth.
And being healed and whole.
Yeah.
Totally. Awesome. And last question, brother, is beyond the human experience, beyond this skin suit and all time in existence, what are you?
Dude, more and more I'm finding that I'm you. Yeah. It's it. Like, I was just looking up Lomi Lomi the other day, and like Lomi Lomi is Hawaiian mystic massage practice where the massage isn't so much about the physical mechanistic experience of the massage. The way we think about a massage is like, rub that muscle until it feels good. Yeah, that's right. And maybe you release some energy, I don't know, whatever. Lomi Lomi is believing that or knowing that the arms and the hands are an extension of the heart.
Yeah. And
that we are able to transmit love energy into the other person's body, knowing that it's actually our body too, knowing there is no separation. And it creates this free flow of oneness through a massage where it's not the physical massage, it is the transference of love through the hands from our heart to their body as if it is our body. So we're just giving love freely into other people, the universe or the earth, through our hands, through our creative ability, through our hands. And it's super beautiful to see that this is a selfless idea. You're not looking for any exchange or someone to do it back to you or anything like that, because the nourishment for your own body is the nourishment in their body, because it is your body too. So when you and I are interacting in this way, it's like I am you, because everything that is growing between us right now is literally this deepening and knowing, superposition, nonlinear dynamics, Bell's theorem, quantum theory, all this sort of thing, is actually showing us that there's no separation. So we're both part of the same spirit, so we are fragmentations of the same God consciousness, creator energy, great spirit, whatever you want to call it. We're both fragmentations of that are re-meeting each other. And we've been off thinking we're separate and then realizing that we're a part of the same human consciousness, the same light, the same source. Yeah?
I love it.
So it's like we are just ourselves meeting ourselves through the airwaves here. You're in Melbourne, I'm in Byron Bay. There's actually no separation. There's no separation. You're right here, I'm right there,
Nicely entangled.
That's beautiful, because people will listen to this talk in a day or in a year, and they will be present with us now. Because time's not real. They can hear our voices or watch us on YouTube, and we will bring them back into this state of connection and oneness together. So this talk is more than me and you as well. I am you, you are me, but we're also all the people listening if they want to, and everyone else too. But it's like, it's a field of oneness, and these fields of oneness that we're creating are also what are going to change the planet, because not only are we just cognitively talking about it, but we're actually beginning to feel the truth in what we're saying. And that truth is going to create a cascade of knowing in our hearts. Yeah, it's super beautiful, man. It's super beautiful. Life's good, Just remember.
It's a gift. Life is amazing. Awesome. Well, I am going to tie it out, and I can't do it without thanking you, bro. So it starts with just a massive, massive, massive acknowledgement for, obviously the you that's here and now, and sharing all of this and taking the time to obviously pour into sharing so diligently, so with so much effort and energy, everything that you have. And I know it comes to you freely, but I'm still super grateful for it. But also all the work that goes into that behind the scenes, all the content, all the reading, and even just all the energy that you put out onto YouTube to share all your videos, consistently showing up the way that you do, and opening up the space that you make yourself present for other people to experience healing and that sort of stuff. Amazing, brother. Amazing. Takes a lot of courage to walk the path that is undefined. So I really respect that and really appreciate that about you. And again, sharing your time so willingly. And these podcasts have become truly some of my favorites. Like I said to you prior, we're still getting feedback on the podcast that we did together.
Amazing feedback.
Yeah, so it's really humbling to be able to hold space to share your vibe and your energy with the tribe here and beyond. So just humbly, truly, thank you so much. And I just want to throw that back at you as well. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, the easiest way to do that at the moment is?
Dude, you can contact me anopportunitytoheal@gmail.com. You can check out my website, anopportunitytoheal.com. You can check me out. A lot of my ideas and thoughts and everything like that, I check them up on Instagram. So An Opportunity to Heal inside Instagram. So it's like Instagram/An Opportunity to Heal. You can search An Opportunity to Heal in YouTube. You get my YouTube channel, An Opportunity to Heal in SoundCloud, and also Facebook, An Opportunity to Heal. Or, tune with me on Facebook, Tristan Bray on Facebook. That's another way too. It's pretty easy. There's a lot. I'm pretty easy to contact. And also, dude, I just want to thank you for what you're doing. You're a good interviewer. Because I interview people. Like you're teaching me to be a better interviewer, man. You keep the ball rolling, and your questions like whoa, man, like. Good questions. Like I said, I don't know what I know until you ask me, man. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for sending me that T-shirt.
Yes.
It's pimping inspired evolution. And that's a really good design. I feel good when.
Thank you.
Yeah, love it. So I love what you're doing, and this is amazing collaboration, synergy. What you've created here to get this love out. Because we both know that this information heals people and gives people hope, and it's just super beautiful opportunity to heal.
Love you, brother. Thank you.
Blessings on your life, man, and keep it up. And I hope to see you soon, somehow, somewhere.
I can't wait. I know it's already happening. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Love of the Inspired Evolution and sharing the Love of the Inspired Evolution. If you feel like this content has supported you or may support anyone else that you know may resonate with the content of it, please share away and share the love around. Thank you guys so much. And to stay up to date on whatever's coming out with the Inspired Evolution, please subscribe. There's all these links in the bio for you to tune into the episodes and all these different platforms, just so that message can get to you and your loved ones. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Stay inspired to evolve.